Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Average Joe Show. I am your host, Joe Carrion, and we're back. It's been a long hiatus. I apologize that things have kind of been on break, but there's been a lot going on. I'm actually going to explain in another episode what's been going on in my life, but we've got more important matters to attend to right now. I have a very special guest, and I am joined here by Brittney Mink. Brittney invited me on, I think back a couple months ago, to talk about the Child Advocacy Center
Mhm.
here in Towanda. And we're just going to kind of have a discussion about what's going on here. We'll probably dive in a little bit about, I'd like to talk a little bit about the psychology of child abuse a little bit if we can. And we'll just kind of see where this episode goes. I'm very excited to see what all we're going to talk about. But first of all, Brittney, tell me a bit about this place. Like how this all kind of come together, what's new, what's all going on here right now.
Yeah, so the Children's House is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're here in Towanda, right next to the Towanda Guthrie Hospital. We've been here for almost 40 years. And so the story goes back here in Bradford County to the Bradford County Child Sexual Assault Task Force. There was a group of concerned citizens and professionals in the area that recognized that there was a need for a coordinated approach to child sexual abuse investigations. And so this group continued to get together. They formed the task force, applied for a grant, which secured the facility that we're in today. And since then, our programs have expanded. So we serve kids of all different maltreatment types, child physical abuse, commercial sexual exploitation of youth, or more commonly known as the human trafficking. We see severe physical abuse, drug endangered, neglected children. And we also offer prevention services too. So.
Okay, very interesting. How does the work of a child advocacy center kind of differ from that of other organizations focused on child welfare? Like, what's different about what you guys do here?
Yeah, the Children's House is the only nonprofit of its kind in Bradford County that provides a coordinated approach to the child abuse investigation. So if you think of before children's advocacy centers were created, kids were having to go to 9 different places or so and talk to about 15 different people. If you think a child were to disclose that something happened to them in school, they're having to tell how many people at school to start that report. Then you have all of the responding officers. It gets assigned to a detective. Children and youth have their side. Medical gets involved. How many people you have to talk to in the medical side gets to court. All of those people. And so it was causing more trauma. And so bringing all of those disciplines, called the multidisciplinary team, to the table to provide a coordinated approach to that child abuse investigation, the goal is to reduce trauma. And so that's kind of where it differs. Is we're an aid to the investigation. We aren't the investigation when a child outcries, but we just provide the resources and the services needed for that investigation.
You just kind of listed off a lot of different steps that are taken when basically an intake. How do you guys kind of make that intake? Probably like there's a lot of steps you just mentioned. How do you
Yep.
make that intake process to a victim more like feel seamless? Like what is that like? If someone's out there right now watching this, like, man, it's a lot I got to deal with, but how do you guys kind of make that comfortable for a victim?
Well, it really comes down to the collaborative approach that we have with our law enforcement at the federal, state, and local levels, and children and youth services. So when a child does outcry and people make reports to the child hotline, that goes to the county. And then that report gets distributed to the appropriate law enforcement jurisdiction. And then law enforcement and children and youth work together to refer the case to the Children's House for all of those investigative services that they need.
Okay. Okay. Uh, can you kind of walk us through a typical visit to the Child Advocacy Center for a child, like on a typical day? Like what's a typical day look like here?
So it starts out once that referral is made, and everybody that's involved in the case, there's a date that works best for them. They'll come up to our front door, and the first service that they receive would be the forensic interview. Um, but prior to that, they're sitting out in our waiting room. It's a child-friendly environment. There's toys, games, things to make them feel comfortable. We provide children snacks and drinks, and then the forensic interview starts. The forensic interview is done by staff here at the Children's House, someone who's been trained in how to have conversations with children surrounding allegations of maltreatment. And so it's actually done here in this room where they sit and the child tells their story in their own words about what happened to them.
Wow. Wow. Why do you, I'm going to ask you this, probably kind of your opinion. I'm going to shift gears here for a second. Why do you think there's so much child abuse going on right now? Why do you think there's been such a need for this center right now? I mean, it's great that we have it, but why do you think there's so much going on right now in society?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it's a new trend. I think that we're just talking about it more. Um, you know, 90% of children are abused by someone they know, love, and trust. And I'd say even here in Bradford County, it's probably almost 98%. And so back in the day, these were the crimes that we weren't talking about. What happens in this family stays in that family. I'm going to mind my own business. And I think that we're talking about it more and we are working to provide the community with the resources. What does child maltreatment look like in a family? What are the grooming signs? How are these offenders getting access to these kids? And so the more that we're talking about it, the more that it's becoming, I think, more public presence.
Mhm. So more people are talking about it, I think, because of social media and everything that's going on. But also, social media is going to open up the chance for more grooming. So, is there anything that you guys can do here to kind of combat the social media stuff to protect the child? Like, what does that look like?
We are a partner with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You might remember John Walsh from back in the day with America's Most Wanted. He had an experience with his son Adam, and the death of his son led to the nonprofit that is now nationwide. They have the cyber tip line. They have really great resources in the NetSmarts and KidSmarts prevention curriculums. And so we are a partner with them. We were the first Pennsylvania organization to partner with NCMEC to be able to roll out prevention curriculums. So that way, kids K through 12 are getting the resources and knowledge and tools that we have to be able to stay safer online. So what does personal information, what is that? And then as the child gets older, how does that personal information transfer into these allegations and these types of crimes? We talk about then it transitions into what is sextortion. And so we're building on the blocks as they get older to continue that conversation into the harsher topics that we see happening online.
Yeah, yeah. What does a typical success story look like when a child kind of comes through here? Like, what do you consider success?
Yeah. The success looks different to everybody. And the families come in, they're unsure of really what to expect. They get the forensic interview. They have a family advocate appointed to them to kind of walk them through the process. Their child gets a physical exam here on site. They receive the coordinated approach to their investigation from the time that opens until the time that it closes. And so all of those people at the table are really getting an opportunity to make an informed decision about the child's case and what's going on. And it could be prosecution. It could be going to trial. It could be taking a plea deal. Really, what's in the best interest for the child and family. And maybe it's just having their story be believed here. And success looks different to everybody, but we support the child wherever they're at in that.
Yeah. How? I mean, I think we talked a little bit about what was it, Chris Hansen or something? Like what child abuse we all kind of have an idea of what it looks like. What are some ways that we might not recognize child abuse that we should look out for, right now?
So the red flags.
Yeah, red flag. Yep.
Red flags in grooming behavior. So the unfortunate reality of that 90% of the crimes that are being committed sexually by people are by kids that they know, love, and trust. And so it's really just having conversations with your child. If you notice that they say all of a sudden don't want to go to their uncles anymore, and they've always wanted to go to their uncles, what is that change? Changes in their behavior. So in children who are at that developmental age where they have regressive behavior, so they're back to wetting the bed when they have moved on from that stage. They have social and emotional behaviors. Their school grades drop. Sometimes they overperform. And really, it could be any symptom that a child could have that might be an indicator that something is going on. And if a child has all of those indicators, it doesn't mean that something is happening. It's just meaning that the caregivers and adults in a child's life have to cue in, like, hey, what's going on in your world right now?
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. What do you see as like I guess the biggest trend right now in child abuse? Like where do you see things going?
I believe so. As tech grows, I think that tech does play a part in it. I'd say 90% of the cases that we see has some version of tech within them. So it's going to be there's messages about what happened. Um, and we're also starting to see, not so much in Pennsylvania, but it is, I think, going to be on the rise, is the AI generative images. And so not necessarily child pornography, but definitely child sexual abuse materials.
Yep, yep. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk with Brittany a little bit more about what's going on here and just what all we can do to prevent child abuse. Thank you. All right, we are back. Thank you for supporting our advertisers. Big thank you to Charlie at Building 9 Grill and Ryan Allen at Welsh Insurance. Please stop into Building 9. Charlie always gives you a great experience in that restaurant. Go see Ryan Allen to help you save a bunch of money on your insurance. He's helped me. We appreciate our sponsors. Thank you. We're back with Brittany, and Brittany, these are very, sensitive topics and sensitive questions, but let's talk about some success stories. How do you measure the success of your programs, and what does success look like for a child advocacy center?
Um, Success. It's unfortunate that children's advocacy centers have to exist just based off of the nature of the work that we have to do. Um, but being able to be open to the community when there is an allegation, and to be able to offer all of the resources and supports that we can to that child and family, um, even if we just make a difference in one child's life, that's a huge success.
Yep.
We are one of 41 children's advocacy centers across the Commonwealth, and there's almost 1,000 in the nation. And so success looks differently among all of them. But one thing that we're really proud of is that we are an accredited children's advocacy center through the National Children's Alliance. They're based out of Washington, D.C., and they set there's 10 standards that children's advocacy centers have to follow to be called what's an accredited children's advocacy center. And you go through this process every 5 years, and it's a lot of paperwork. There's interviews with all of our team. But really, it's setting the standard of, what's the best practice involving these cases, and what are we doing to give kids the best possible outcome. And so being able to get that accreditation every 5 years is really huge. The Children's House here in Bradford County is one of the very few rural CACs that is able to offer all of the services that we do on site. A lot of CACs have to partner with provide medical in the hospital, provide mental health, with a different organization, but we're able to provide all of those services under one roof. And to be able to say that we're offering the same type of service to the same level of service with kids, in bigger, more populated areas, is huge.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy to see Bradford County having something like this here. I mean, we're very fortunate. What are some of the common misconceptions about CACs that you can kind of debunk here? This is kind of a question I wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm. So I think one thing that we kind of get pulled into is that we're either children and youth or we're law enforcement. And those are just the partners that we work with. We aren't investigative parties. We're not, while we want whatever whatever is the outcome that happens, we'll be there in support for the family. But we are non-biased. When it comes to being in this forensic interview room, if a child discloses, then we believe the child. If the child is not disclosing, then that's not our determination to make that. We're just giving the facts to the investigators to make that job. And I think that that might be sometimes where the community kind of gets a little confused on that, is that we're making the decisions of their case, and that's not the case.
How can communities get more involved? I mean, you have this facility right here. You got investigators, you've got, detectives, judges, but how can the community get more involved in helping make your role a lot easier?
So a couple of different things, donating in-kind goods or services. So whether that be volunteering with our agency, like a facility volunteer, there's always something to be done here. We have snacks and drinks. Like I said, kids come here. We always in need of fidget spinners or something to make the children feel comfortable. We do a Christmas for Kids program so that families can be adopted that have come adopted for the Christmas holiday. So that's one way that they can give, and then monetary donations help cover the gaps that we have in our funding streams.
Okay, awesome. What resources or education do you guys offer here for, schools, parents, and, other parties involved on, child abuse and, just children's advocacy?
Yeah, it's huge. We've recently revamped our entire prevention curriculum. And so we are able to offer the Net Smarts internet safety training. We have the Kid Smarts abduction safety training. We're able to provide trainings on minimal facts. So for those that are in, I wouldn't say an investigator role, but those who work with children that might be able to get close to a disclosure, kind of how you're asking questions enough to get the report. How to recognize and respond to maltreatment is another session that we offer. We are a Darkness to Light Stewards of Children, which is a sexual abuse curriculum that we offer. And we have some in human trafficking or the CSEC cases. And then we were recently trained in the Monique Burr Curriculum Foundation, which is a K through 12, a pre-K through 12, course on how sexual abuse, physical abuse, bullying, all of those different types of factors that a child might come across, red flags, and how to respond appropriately if they feel something's going on.
If you're a child or a parent, what is I don't know a gateway red flag? Like, what is, if you can disclose it, what is something that we should be, I'm a parent, I'm father to two boys. What is something that is just a gateway red flag, if you will, to kind of just watch out for out in public or with family, just to make sure nothing's going on? What would you consider that?
I'd say the biggest is their changes in their behavior.
Okay.
So your child best, and if they start to have those shifts in their behavior or their activities that they like to do, and that's just an opportunity to ask, what's kind of going on in your world.
Okay. How has funding impacted the services that you can provide?
Oh, funding. So funding is huge for us. So here at the Children's House, we receive $47,000 annually from certified birth certificate copies. So you go and you get another birth certificate. A portion of that funding comes back to children's advocacy centers across the Commonwealth.
Wow.
And we have a budget of over $400,000. So we face a significant funding gap.
Yep.
And we make that up in various ways, like the federal, state, and local grants. So the Victims of Crime Act, we did see it's now, since it started, about a 7% reduction in the past couple of years. So that's concerning, that federal stream. We receive another state funding grant through the endowment with the Sandusky scandal that came out. So we receive a portion of that money from the fees and penalties from that we've applied for. It's competitive, right? So you're having to vie for other, well-intentioned resources, which is unfortunate. And then private foundations, local support is really how we are able to keep afloat. But it really comes down to our donor support is where we see the biggest impact in our programs.
Perfect. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll find out a little bit more about how you can get involved in supporting the CAC. Stay right here. Back here with Brittney Mink, and this has just been a very eye-opening episode. And I have to ask Brittney, how did you get involved in just what made you want to get involved in something like this? It's not. It takes a special type of person to do something like this. You have to have a big heart and you know psychology, mind, and just how'd you get involved in something like this?
It was out of pure happenstance, really. So I originally got my start at the Children's House in need of an internship. I didn't want to go to another semester of school, and I just Googled internships near me, and the Children's House Facebook or website had popped up, and I applied and was offered the position as an intern and was able to really get to see the difference that these centers make. I wanted to go into a law enforcement serving capacity, but the internship really changed the trajectory of my career. And once I got here, I really wanted to get back. I was brought on as a part-time family advocate, and I was later cross-trained as a forensic interviewer. And I've been working here in Children's Advocacy Center roles for almost over 10 years now, and I couldn't imagine doing anything different. So that part is the really my why. But also kind of, before that, it's not uncommon for people in this field to be victims themselves. And, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. And I was one of them. And so having that experience and knowing what an investigation looks like without a children's advocacy center is my why. I never want a child and family to be in the midst of something going on and not have this resource, to not be able to walk through our doors and be able to meet with people that care about them, the outcome of their case, to be able to have the resources and supports from the beginning to the end. It's my driving factor, and to be able to give back to my local community that's given back so much to me is huge.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you got into it, and you said that you were unfortunately a victim. I got to ask you this question: in your professional opinion, do you see more sexual abuse in kind of a impoverished area? I'm not saying Bradford County is impoverished, but we are, per capita, probably one of the lower income counties in Pennsylvania. Do you see more in like lower income areas, or is it just as bad in the higher income areas like the cities?
It can happen anywhere to anyone, regardless of background, socioeconomic status, anything like that. Bradford County has higher rates of substantiated child abuse reports. So when investigators say that something happened, is what substantiated means, than that of Philadelphia County. So per capita. So if you probably were to look at income bases, but it's higher here, but it can happen to anyone.
Yeah. Okay. So for listeners who may suspect a child is being abused or they need help themselves, who should they turn to? They call here, they call the investigator, they call the police first. What would you suggest?
So the first step to making a report of child maltreatment would be to go to the PA Child Hotline. If you were to Google that or look up that number, it's a 1-800 number. You can file it anonymously. You don't have to have proof. It's just a suspicion. Something doesn't seem right, and I want to make a report on it. And then from there, the investigators take over. Of course, if there's if something has immediately happened, contacting 911, going to seeking emergency medical services would be that next step. But calling through the hotline is the step. And if anybody has any questions, they're free to give us a call, and we can kind of point them in the right direction as well.
Okay. What advice would you give to parent or caregivers to make sure their children are safe from abuse? What's your number one step?
Believe your children.
Why do you say that?
So children oftentimes, like one in 10 children. Let me back up. The statistic that I gave about the child sexual abuse, children disclose at a very slower rate. And so they have to feel safe. They might test the waters and say something happened, but won't give you the big picture. But we have like a 10% chance of a child disclosing when something happens to them. And so if they come forward and they say something happened to me, it's really important that we believe them.
Why do you think that it's only 10%? What goes into that statistic? Is it that parents just don't want to believe that something, or a caregiver don't want to believe that something bad has happened? Why is it so low?
So the disclosure rate is just based off of how children disclose. And so the way that disclosures come about, the alleged offender might say that if you say something, there's gonna be threats in it. So if something's gonna happen to me or my family, I'm not gonna talk about it because I don't want to see the repercussions of what that could be. Nobody will believe you, so why talk about it? And so there's a lot of different things that factor into a child disclosing. And then what we see too is a child comes out and says something happened to them, and then they can see the different how their life changes after that disclosure. Oftentimes you see the family disruption, and so then they want to recant or take back that statement. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but they see the effects of what their disclosure does. And so we just really need to provide that family support.
That's heavy. I guess kind of wrapping up here, is there anything else you'd like our audience to know about the work of a child advocacy center? Like what should we know? What shouldn't we know? Like what should we know?
So they're all sorts of different centers. Some of them are completely 501c3 nonprofit based. Some fall under the umbrella of another nonprofit organization. Some are within the county system, or they're operated under a law enforcement, the district attorney's office. The way they develop and operate is different, but we all remain committed to the same mission of helping kids and giving them the best possible outcomes. And so just get connected. The more that we talk about it and the more that people, see our logo or hear about the Children's House, the more that we're able to move the needle in prevention.
All right. What's the best way to get a hold of you guys here? Call you? I mean, how should people just reach out and if they want to help, if they want to report, what's the best way to contact you?
So our phone number is 570-265-4132, or you can go find us online at www.chcac.org. And then we're on all sorts of social medias, and just look up us at the Children's House.
What's the easiest way to give? If people want to donate and support, what's the best way?
So online, you can do www.chcac.org/donate. Just a one click from our landing page. You can give monthly, one time, or there is a roundup feature. So if you link a credit card, you can select how much money you would like to donate per month from your roundup donation. So that's one way. Or you can mail a check to the Children's House to 64 Hospital Drive, Towanda, PA 18848.
Awesome. Brittney, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I learned a lot today just talking to you, having this conversation. I appreciate you reaching out. You have a beautiful center here, and I hope that your work here does not go unnoticed. I know that you guys are making a huge impact right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Average Joe Show. Like I said, we've got more episodes coming up soon. We're going to hit some stuff in Canton, Troy. I'm going to have an episode next week on what's been going on. So make sure you stay tuned. Thank you.